to do with my pen. I'm gonna go grab a pen real quick.
So we are on lesson 5, mindfulness and yoga nidra and guided meditation. So I have to say I've done research on mindfulness practices for children, and I've done a lot of just research and exploring different ways of doing it and all this stuff. And do you see how we finally got to the guided meditation? But a lot of people start here. A lot of people start with the guided meditation, and they just do guided meditation, and that's their mindfulness, and that's their lesson. They kind of don't bring to the forefront the other senses. So they have this, they're activating the hearing of the children here. And we talked about the 5 senses and how to engage the 5 senses when you're engaging mindfulness and you're doing mindfulness and teaching mindfulness. So guided meditation is usually where they start, because there's definitely a lot of guided meditations out there for children in terms of mindfulness, and we're going to review some of them here. For mine, I have my book that I use, and we're going to go through and review. We're actually going to do two of them. We're going to practice 2 of them, because all of this is so important to practice. The homework end of this program will just help you be a better teacher, be able to be a better mindfulness teacher for children. If you have your own practice, that's really the pillar and the foundation of you teaching the children. They can always tell. They know the difference. They really know the difference between whether you practice what you're saying and whether you haven't practiced what you're saying. It's just like what I was saying earlier about doing those peace talks in 7 centers and talking about peace in the world. It's really this integration of, you're talking about peace, but you also have this responsibility to practice, to have your own type of practice. And for everyone, that's different. And we'll talk more about that. We'll talk more about the importance of the practice. But that's why we have the homework assignments a little bit at a time, when you can do it. And it's not as rigid as you may think, but when you have a couple of minutes to really give yourself that time to be quiet, it's so important. Because you really can't give from a place if you're not full. Like if your bucket let's say it's a bucket, and if it's too full, it's too stressed out, you can't give if you don't have anything to give. You know, if you're too stressed out, or if you're not taking that element of self-care, that element of emotional well-being, all that's so important when you're doing any of this peace curriculum, mindfulness, yoga, or any kind of physical things. All of those things are 200% important. So you must have, on one hand, you hold your own practice, and that's your own practice of mindfulness and meditation. On the other hand, you're able to give, but you can't. This is a balancing act, right? You're balancing both of them, so you're more effective on both of them. Okay? But it may look different. And again, if you have family, if you're a householder, if you have children, it looks completely different than if you went to a 10-day silent retreat. That's just another element altogether. But if you're a householder, you can do 10 minutes of quiet. If you can do 5 minutes of quiet in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, the intention is really what's so important when you're doing these practices. So what's your intention behind your meditation or your daily practice? And if you can find the little times, if you can find driving somewhere to clear your mind and to pay attention, kind of make that your meditation, or walking or running or hiking or any kind of physical movement, those extroverts. I talked about the introverts and the extroverts. So you find your own practice and what works for you. But the key is that you do practice. The key is that you make the time out. You carve out the time for yourself so that you have those opportunities to be quiet within. And again, the quiet within may look different from me than from you. My quiet within is 10 days of silence or 3 days. Whenever I can get to that silence. I am so attracted to not talking and to not being around people and to just like being completely, my son asked me yesterday, was it yesterday or it was this morning? Oh, he said, Mom, what are you going to be doing when you're 84 or 90? I think he said 84. I said, you know what?
Nothing.
Yeah, I'm going to be out in the Himalayas. I'm going to be meditating. I'm going to be with myself. And my sister's like, you can't do that. You're a household. And I'm like, I know, but that's actually how I picture myself at that time. And when I'm 90 or 100 or whatever, I picture myself out in the mountains meditating all the time and just kind of holding that space of Mahasamadhi, with the yogis call the elevated space right as you enter into samadhi. So anyway, but we don't have that luxury. We don't have that luxury to go out to the mountains and to like be separated from, we must be integrated into and make the world a better place. And that's why we're here. And that's what we are here for, right? Ultimately. So, okay. So I wanted to comment, I said this last week, but I wanted to say something. When you start doing this work, so I just talked about sadhana, and I just talked about practicing, having to practice yourself, but also what's going to happen too is that you're going to be asked to come out of your comfort zone, and you're going to be asked to solve conflicts. When you start doing peacemaking, that's just what happens. So you're going to be asked to contribute and to really, when I started doing this for my staff last year, like the people that I worked with, it just naturally happened. People came to me and said, can you mediate for us? Can you talk? We're in conflict right now. Can you talk, be the mediator and discuss this with us? Can you talk this through? Can you teach us better ways to communicate? It just happens. So if you're doing your sadhana and if you're going in the direction of peacemaking, I want you to really focus on that. I want you to focus on just like that's a reality of the situation. You put out there that you are doing this type of work, the conflict resolution and the peacemaking. Be ready for all of it to come towards you. Be ready and say yes. Say yes. Okay, yes, I will. I'm going to help you deal with whatever conflict that you're dealing with at this time, and just kind of be open to it, because what's going to happen, you naturally do with children. If you're a teacher and if you're in a setting of a school, and if you're in that, you're naturally already problem solving for them, right? They come up to you and say, oh, so-and-so took my toy and he won't give it back. In scenarios like that, you're constantly solving conflicts. But then once you really engage in it, once you set it as your course and your focus, you're going to see that the people around you are going to catch on to it. They're going to say, oh, she's doing this and she's solving this problem. Maybe she's good. Maybe she can help me in this case scenario. So I just want you to know that when you're walking on this path, that is the case. And I talked to several friends of mine who do this type of work, and it all kind of looks a little different, but we all do it under the same umbrella of peace and harmony for worldwide peace. And we all agree it's the same. It happens to all of us. Once we put out there that we are peacemakers and that we're solving conflicts, it just seems like you have to be ready for it, and you are faced with conflict, and you're faced with helping mediate, helping with conflict. And so just to let you know that this is the nature of this work. This is the nature of the work that you're stepping forward on, that your journey is going on, is that when you start saying, I'm going to help children solve conflict, and I'm going to teach them how to do conflict resolution, just be ready for conflict to come to you and for you to be a voice to help others. So I just want to put that out there. We're not quite at the peace curriculum part yet, but all of this, the mindfulness and the yoga, all these are all building up to like really supporting peace in an environment and changing an environment into a peaceful environment. So any questions about that? Any comments about that? Oh, okay. Okay, so, oh, okay. So I wanted to say that many times during mindfulness, so especially if you're doing mindfulness classes every single day with children, it's really a good idea to break it up with games and with, so once a month, instead of doing mindfulness with them for a week, I would just do games with them. And children love that. They love the spontaneity of that. They love that. I mean, it's 15 minutes of like, or depending on the time that you have with them, it's an opportunity for them to play games. It breaks up their day. It breaks up the mindfulness lessons. So I wanted to encourage you to do that. Also, so that's playing games with them, but also reading to them. And reading to them is something that children naturally are really drawn to, and they love so much to listen to storytelling. So I'm going to return to that. So there's twofold. So at any point when you're teaching mindfulness to children, you can decide for yourself and say, you know what, I think I need to break it up. I think I need to do a game. So I found, just to give you some ideas to kind of go with that. And there's a lot of children's games out there. You can Google and there's a ton of games, but this is called Escapades. I don't know if you could see that. It's it's 350 games, energizers and challenges to ignite. And this is just this big thing of games. I would suggest finding something like this and just kind of having it be your go-to. There's so many out there. There's Red Rover, there's Red Light, Green Light, there's Fish Out of Water, there's even jump roping. You know, children aren't jump roping anymore. I don't know if you guys knew that. That's something for them that is really foreign. They don't have that exposure to, you know, just normal jump roping and hopscotch, things like that. Even Chinese, what is that? Chinese jump rope, where you tie the elastic strings, you know, and to tie them up, and then you jump in and out of it, and they're around the ankles of two people. So these games that we had exposure to, they're not having exposure to it. They're just, so we have to reintroduce it to them, and they are actually very, very thankful for it. I mean, there's a lot of, in the movement of Waldorf and Montessori, there's a lot of this exposure to things like that, like movement games and things like that. But in general, the public schools aren't getting as much of exposure to these old-fashioned games, you know. So with all sorts of things being cut from programs and such. So have that kind of as a go-to in the back of your head, or even Silent Ball. Silent Ball is another one. That's a really funny one that, you know, it's been lost. Like, really, the students that I've had in the last couple years, they've just been like, what's Silent Ball? You know, it's like these games that we remember as children, we just, they're just not, they've changed, you know. It's a lot of things. Again, there's this nature deprivation that children have right now, that especially kids that are in bigger cities that are not exposed to nature. And so they're not exposed to being outside as much. You know, there was the time where children were outside, and they were outside from after school to 6. It's just not that way as often as it was when we were growing up, or in the, you know, generations past. So anything that you can break up mindfulness with, you can do it, and they're happy for it. Another thing that they love, and this is part of the listening lessons that we do in conflict resolution, is they love telephone. They love, you know, you pass around something on one side, you pass around a message on the other side, and it goes, and they really, really want to get it. You know, I used to always give them rewards whenever they got it. They never did, though. In the last 2 or 3 years I played telephone with children, I rarely had a group that actually was correct, which is really funny to me. But they loved it. They just really, really loved that spontaneity of playing. Okay, we're not doing mindfulness today. Let's play a game. Let's play telephone. And they love that. And they really tried very hard with telephone, but I tried to give them more complicated ones so they could really, really listen. So, so I suggest something like this. This is a really good resource. This is called Escapades. I'm sure you can find it online. You know what, I use, and there's just different, this is just a whole different index of theatrical games. There's partner games, there's group games, there's cooperative challenges, there's all sorts of things in something like this. So have in your tool bag games that you can spontaneously, because what you're doing is that you're reading the class as you're going around with these lessons. So if you've already done like maybe 2 or 3 weeks of mindfulness with them, read their energy. Be aware of if they need that playful outlet. And most, what I found, this is with adults too. A lot of adults need that playful aspect to keep their curiosity about whatever subject that they're studying going, right? So if you come with a more playful attitude with them, instead of a rigid attitude about these practices, you're going to get a better result from the children. They're going to be more engaged. So kind of spacing out with, again, games, books to read. I have some books that I wanted to share with you about how they apply to the peace curriculum and mindfulness. One in general that I have that I love, I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to share the screen. This book, I actually have this book, but I wanted to share the read along with you. So I am going to switch screens. So it's I Am Peace, a book of mindfulness. And this book actually has a guided meditation at the end of it. Let's see I'm going to go ahead and play it. It's by Susan Verde.
I Am Peace, a book of mindfulness by Susan Verde, art by Peter H. Reynolds. There are times when what happened next and what happened before. The thoughts in my head are like rushing water, and I feel like a boat with no anchor. Being carried away. I give myself a moment. I take a breath. And then I tell myself, it's all right. I feel the ground beneath my feet and steady myself. And start to notice the here and the now. My thoughts begin to settle. My mind begins to clear. I am peace. I can watch my worries gently pop and disappear. I let things go. I can say what I feel inside out loud. I know myself. I can share kindness with others. I can hug a tree and thank it for its beauty and strength. I connect to nature. I can watch the clouds make shapes against the sky. I know wonder. I can taste and smell and touch and hear and see what is all around me. I use my senses. I can feel my breath fill my whole body. I tune into me. Now the water is still. I have found my anchor. And everything is all right. I don't need to worry about before or after. I am in this moment. I am peace. Now I share my peace with others and hope that it is carried away to those who need it. And I dream We are peace. Thanks for joining me today. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel.
Okay, so actually the actual book, I Am Peace, a book of mindfulness, has a guided meditation at the very end of it. But I like the read aloud for it as well. It goes back around to the water analogy. And so we're, in all of that, the really, really useful part of what we're really teaching children is that point where they can say to themselves, it's the self-talk and self-reflection point where they can say, I am okay, right? So in that whole story, there was a place where the main character was like, wait, they reflected on themselves and they said, you know what? I'm at peace. I'm okay. So that one point, that's what all of this is about, is for them to get to that point and use that internal compass to be able to have this self-reflection, like self-care, like self-responsibility. All of that is where all of this mindfulness that we're talking about, that's where we're hoping that the children will stop and reflect and say, I'm not going to allow myself for my waters to get bumpy, or for my thoughts to get bumpy up and down or emotional. I'm going to stop and I'm going to really reflect and say, I am okay. I'm okay. So this is a skill, right? Like for adults, this is not an easy thing. It's something that is a constant work in progress. So if I were reading that book aloud, and I have this book, I just didn't bring it with me. If I were reading that book aloud, I would stop right there at that point, right? When the child was saying, oh, something is wrong, something is up and down, the emotions up and down. I can't remember like the most specific part of it. And I would say, I would question it. I would start really asking the questions and guiding a discussion around just that point, because they want to be really clear. You have to be really clear with them what mindfulness is. And you have to be really clear with them at that point when the mind was starting to go this way, the character said and stopped and reflected and said, you know what, I'm okay and I'm going to be okay. So when you're really clear about that, they'll be really clear about it. They'll be able to identify for themselves and use that as a tool, okay? So even with adults, if you went back and you did a meditation class for adults, that is the point. It's the ability to not react. It's the ability to stop, take a step back, to breathe, to have that waiting moment. So that moment between feeling something, maybe not, your perception of it is, well, it's emotion or it's negative, and acting from that feeling. So being able to almost have a gap between action and reaction. Okay, so all of this, we're going to talk more about this when we talk about yoga, because the Yoga Sutras talks very, very specifically about this. But when we're to the essence of teaching mindfulness for children, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about slowing down the reaction. Okay, so just want to be really clear about that. Some other really great books is The Gift of Nothing. I'm going to write these down on the chat. Okay. So this is by Patrick McDonald, and this is a really sweet book, The Gift of Nothing. I'll put it down on the chat. Another really sweet one is There's Only One You. Only One You. And this one is a good one to do with peace rocks. So because there's a lot of, the fish look like rocks. And this is a really sweet one too. So Only One You. The Gift of Nothing. And I'll put it down on the chat. So there's another one. Baron Baptiste has one out, and that one talks a lot more about yoga, but it's still good to read. It's My Daddy is a Pretzel, so that's from Baron Baptiste. I wonder if I have it with me. Do I have it with me? I don't have it with me because I use it a lot. Thich Nhat Hanh has a children's books out too, mindfulness, and he just is really very sweet. The writing that he does is so sweet. So that's another one that's out. I don't think I brought. There was the Mood books by Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis partnered up with someone else, I don't know her name, but she has How I Feel Today, and all of that's very interesting to talk about the moods. So with the moods, that's a good book as well, because it talks about a young girl who's angry, it talks about a young girl, and she goes through all these emotions, and at the very end, she's just happy about who she is. That's a really
What's it
great
called?
book. How I Feel Today. Jamie Lee Curtis. And more authors are talking about peace. So I would do a Google search on it as well. But those are the ones that I've used regularly, that I love to use and keep on using them. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to start with, in our manual, and we're going to go to activity 15 on page 41, and that will lead you to, we talked about throw away the trash last week. That will lead you to the gratitude. So I have my book out. This is, I know I shared this with you, but these are all my students. All the children that were in this book, these are the students that I had in my classes. And my son's in it too. I think I shared that with you. So we're going to look at this gratitude. We're going to start with this gratitude mindfulness practice. And we're going to do this together. So I'm going to lead the gratitude mindfulness, this guided meditation. And then we're going to talk about the rest of the activities that are in the manual, but let's start with this one. So it's kind of strange doing it over the video, but we're going to go ahead and do it anyway. So go ahead and just everything, you just put aside everything, any writing things, any notebooks, anything that, just put it aside for this practice. And we're going to, you can come onto the back body. So you can come into your corpse pose if you like. You don't even have to be on camera, that's fine. Or you can stay seated up like this if you like, with the straight spine. So either way. So when I do this with children, a lot of times they want to do it on their back. So it's fine in their corpse pose. So close your eyes if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, and begin breathing. Inhaling and exhaling. Long, deep breaths. Keep breathing slowly, just to nurture yourself. And notice where the breath goes in the body. If the breath is rapid, see if you can slow down the breath. And see if you can relax the body. There's no need to rush the breath. There's no need to rush anything at this moment. Be aware of nothing else but the inhalation and the exhalation. And relax the whole body. Relax the whole back body. Relax the head and the neck. Feel as if you're about to go to sleep, but you keep the body awake. Feel the sensation of rest and sleep. And clear the mind of any thoughts. I'm going to ask you to fill in thoughts with images. Follow my words so you can fill in your thoughts with images. Bring to mind something that you feel deeply thankful for. Someone, something, some instance, some experience, something that you feel deeply thankful for. And breathe. Taking your focus to the inhalation and exhalation. And hold that image of what you are thankful for. It could be more than one thing, one person, one experience. Allow yourself to think the first thing that comes into your mind, so without overthinking. Just the first thing that comes to your mind. Keep breathing and keep your focus on what you feel deeply thankful for. Now bring to mind something else, something completely different that you feel completely thankful for. And bring all your attention to something that you just feel thankful for. Inhale and exhale. Allow for the mind to be really sharp. You know exactly what you're thankful for. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to allow the mind to wander. You could just go straight to what you're deeply thankful for. Only think about the persons, things, situations, and events that you are thankful for. And keep your feeling on that sense of gratitude. Keep your attention on that, the beauty of gratitude. Keep your attention on what you're thankful for and thankfulness. Inhale and exhale. Bring your attention back to your body, back to the sounds of the room. Stretch your arms and your legs and open your eyes. Okay. So the words that I used a lot was thankful, gratitude, and before I do this mindfulness exercise with children, so I try to use, when I'm doing guided meditation with children, I try to use the same words and I try to repeat it a lot with them. I try to make it as simple as possible and the images as simple as possible for them because the attention is different. So obviously, when I was saying the mindfulness exercise, this is something that's really gently crafted for children. For adults, it completely looks different. Yoga Nidra looks different. Guided meditation for adults can be a lot more complicated. You can go into more rounds of, okay, now drop what you're thinking about and put your mind on something else. You can do that two or three more times. But with children, it's the simpler the images, the better. And the wording of it has to be very clear as well. So thankfulness, gratitude, the words that I used over and over again, I really wanted them to remember it, and it's through the repetition of the guided meditation that they're going to have that word in them. They're going to like, oh, I said thankfulness. I must have said thankfulness like 10 times, but I really wanted them to have that impression, that memory of what thankfulness. And before I do this with them, we go and we have a discussion about gratitude. We go and we have a discussion about what it means to be thankful and how that feels in the body and when it's appropriate to be thankful. And all of this, the discussion around thankfulness and gratitude is a big one. And it's a really profound one, an important one. So before we go there to this type of mindfulness exercise, then we must have that conversation about gratitude and about thankfulness. Relaxation is really important as well. So all of my guided meditations starts with some sort of relaxation or some sort of awareness of the body being relaxed. Oh, doggy. Pay attention to
say hi.
Hi, what's his name?
Hunter. But you're here, I'll take you off. Okay, can you say hi?
Oh,
Cute.
I had a cat on my lap a minute ago.
oh, they just want to be involved all the time. They want to know what we're
Right.
doing. They want to be involved.
But that's why I put these in so that they can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
But they'd be barking probably. I have 2 dogs.
Yeah. So I've done that gratitude meditation with children many, many times, and it's it always turns back to, they always feel like anytime I've guided meditation, it really, if they can get to that state of relaxation, you know that it's successful. If they can get to that state of really listening and being in this sense of like stillness, not completely, especially with the fourth, fifth, and sixth graders, not with the younger group, they're not, it's gonna look differently. You know, in Yoga Nidra with adults, they'll lay there and they'll just be in that zone. With children, it's not the same. If they move a little bit, that's okay. But if they, a lot of times I know when it's successful when we end the meditation and they're like, oh, I wish that was longer, or, you know, they have comments like that where they really did get a lot from it, a lot of good rest from it. So that's one that I like to do, is the gratitude one. Let's go ahead and go to the rotation of consciousness. So there's something about the rotation of consciousness that I want to share with you. I don't think I have rotation of consciousness in my book. So let me just pause for a second here, and I'm going to get a copy of rotation of consciousness for those of you who don't have it. And I had meant to do this earlier. So rotation of consciousness is part of Yoga Nidra. So Yoga Nidra is translated as yogic sleep. And it is, here it is. Here, let me get this to you. This is one copy of it from a yoga instructor who does, yeah. I'm gonna share this with you. There it is. Let me get the chat. So Yoga Nidra is, you know, it's really funny. When I started teaching yoga, Yoga Nidra wasn't as popular as it is now. And there's lots of yoga, specialized Yoga Nidra trainings out there where you could just learn what Yoga Nidra does. It activates a different part of the brain. So yogic sleep, it's a script that there's different parts of Yoga Nidra, and what we do with children, we don't do a whole Yoga Nidra with children, although there are Yoga Nidras out there for children. The most important part of it, and even if you're going to a public school setting, I wouldn't call it Yoga Nidra per se. And I've had this conversation with other children's yoga teachers that they do Yoga Nidra, but they don't call it Yoga Nidra because of the setting that they're in. But the most important part of Yoga Nidra that you could do with all children is rotation of consciousness. So rotation of consciousness is a specific part of the Yoga Nidra script where it brings their awareness to the body. So they specifically are talking about different parts of the body. There's parts of the Yoga Nidra script that talks about breathing. There's a part that goes through different images. And you kind of, as a yoga instructors can kind of craft it the way that they want to do it. They can pick different things. And I usually do not have them do a sankalpa or an intention. The children usually do not have anything like that as part of their guided meditation. The rotation of consciousness focuses on bringing their attention to the parts of the body. So they're changing parts of the bodies. The script is that you're guiding them through different parts of the bodies and they're bringing their attentions as if a bouncing ball. So a bouncing ball, I like the image of a bouncing ball. And when I teach this, I explain this to the children before I go through and do this. Say this is like a bouncing ball. Your attention is bouncing from the one finger, two fingers, third finger, fourth finger, thumb. You know, your attention is bouncing from one piece to the other piece to the other piece. And it doesn't stick to one thing. So what you're teaching them here is the ability to concentrate quickly, the ability to have like this non-attachment to a certain part of the body or a fixation it's this whole exercise in concentration and focus. So as you'll read in the rotation of consciousness script, it bounces from one part of the body to the next, and it's just really guiding them from all the way down to the feet, all the way back up again. And that part of it you can do with children all ages, from kindergarten, preschool, all the way up to high school. You could do rotation of consciousness all ages. That's a whole, that script is useful for all ages, and it's a great tool to have. So yeah, that rotation and consciousness is one of the things I used to do daily. That's when we had mindfulness, and I would have a gap. Rotation of consciousness is one of those things that you need in your toolbox so you can use it almost all the time. You know, it's one of those things where even when we were in mindfulness class, I would take it out, and if we had a minute, I would go back to it. So just having that own body awareness, because a lot of the kids these days are so associated outward, and they're so on their electronics so much, there's this disconnect from body awareness. Rotation of consciousness, although it's only through hearing, it's not through the physical movement, but just to bring them down, just to bring them to associate having that focus to one part of the body at a time, I think is really, really useful and really great. There's all sorts of other benefits to Yoga Nidra and the yogic script. I will talk more about that next time, but I just wanted you to really, really get that part of the rotation of consciousness is very useful, and you can use it. I put in here 5 to 10 minutes, but there's been times when I've used it for 20 minutes where you could just keep on going through the rotation of consciousness and you can use it, and they're so engaged in it. So again, that's another thing, a way of reading your group. If they really, really need that, that focus on like that guided meditation and the focus on the body, and they're in that state of mind that they're so receptive to it, I would just keep on going with it. Like I would even do more than once if they're really, really engaged with it. So I want to bring it up again so we can just read through just a little bit of it. Crystal, I know that you have a lot of experience with this through the training here. I just want to bring it up. Let me see. I had it up, and now I don't have it up. Okay, I'll bring it back up. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna bring it up here. Okay, so here, I'm sharing the screen. The rotation of consciousness would be right here. And so with children, I don't do any of this sankalpa. That's the yogic intention. I go straight to rotation of consciousness. So this part, it may look really small, but it's not. And you can take your time with it. We will now begin the systematic journey of sensory awareness through the body. You will move your awareness to different parts of your body as soon as you hear the name. Say the name of the part of yourself and feel the part of your body, but do not move any part. So you can say the name, but you're not, this is something that I say to my children too, is that you don't say it outward, you're repeating it to yourself as you're going. And the timing of this, I play with the timing of this. So right hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger. I actually found that it's really, really effective if the timing is really slow. A lot of the yoga nidras that I've heard on tape, I know that they just go and they go right hand thumb. They just kind of do it in this like faster pace. But I found that the slow pace works as well. The right hand thumb and then pausing, actually having a pause, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, palm of the hand. So you want a really distinct pause there. And you want to breathe as you're doing it, as you're guiding it. You want to make sure that you're breathing as well. So there's this steady breath, and the steady rhythm of the breath is going alongside with the rotation of consciousness. Left hand thumb, pause. Second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, palm of the hand. So you want those really distinct pauses. You could do breathing before this, you can do breathing after this. You can, and I like to wrap it up with the breath awareness always in all of the guided meditations. If you wrap it up with the breath awareness, and I think that's really, really important. So the top of the head, forehead, right temple, left temple. I would have to say though, I would leave out the parts that I would leave out for the older crew. I had actually had to leave out with the older crew, and the only way that I figured this out was because they laughed at it. So my 7th and 8th graders was at, when I got to, let me see, they would laugh at the groin. I wouldn't say right groin, I wouldn't say left groin. So after like one turn of that, I left it out for the older kids because they just, maturity level and their minds were just in different places. So I left that out. I often left out, do they have armpit in this one? If there's anything about an armpit, I would leave that, or buttocks actually too. Buttocks was the other one that I left out for my 7th and 8th graders. I could do it with my 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. They would be completely oblivious. 7th and 8th graders, they would crack up laughing every single time, which I thought was just really funny. Armpit, yes. Yeah, so here's armpit in here too. I would leave it out. I would leave out armpit. I would leave out, like I said, groin. I would leave out buttocks. Those are the 3 main parts of the rotation of consciousness that I would leave out for the 7th and 8th graders. If you look through the rest of the script, and I know, Crystal, you have a different script as well, I would take a look at it, but in general, the yoga nidra that you do with adults is different than the yoga nidra that you do with children. You just don't do the same thing. It's just a whole
Where did you
different
say
nature.
that script came from?
This one came from, this was online, and it's a yoga instructor that just had posted it online.
I'm having a hard time finding, like I can see your screen with the script, but I'm not able to like download it. I don't know if I have a different screen sometimes, but it looks different today.
Okay, well, it's a PDF file, so maybe, yeah, maybe I can send it as a, instead of a link, maybe I can send it as a PDF file instead.
Okay, wait a sec, I think I just found it. So 3 dots, and I don't know. I'm still learning.
Okay, it's okay. I'm gonna make a note of it to send it as a PDF.
There we go.
So I'm gonna stop that. I'm gonna go back to, I'm gonna go stop share. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we've talked about the rotation of consciousness, and it's just, like I said, the bouncing ball around the body. We talked about the gratitude exercise, contentment. I actually want to, let's jump to the nonviolence. So let's go to activity 18 on page 44, to the nonviolence.
Okay.
Okay, so I really struggled. I have to say, I like this guided meditation, but I struggled when I was writing it. because the nature, you have to understand the nature of forgiveness, and you have to understand the nature of the heart chakra when you're talking about this. So if you don't know what chakras are the wheels of energy that we have in our body, and they're just yoga and yogis. We're not the only ones who talk about the being as an energetic being. It's pretty universal. If you talk, Chinese medicine talks about the energy body. Ayurvedic medicine talks about energy bodies. There's energy workers. So we're talking about certain places in the body where energy is more energy. These 7 places in the body where energy is more prevalent. There's specific energy, it's the energetic bodies, these 7 chakras. So when we're talking about nonviolence, really what we're talking about is the sense of forgiveness. And I'm going to make that jump because it's really, really important. When we're talking about forgiveness, we're talking about the heart. And this is what's challenging about this. We're putting to words something that's completely energetic. That sense of forgiveness that's in the heart center, this is something that's developed, this is something that's energy, this is something that's, the heart center is so deep. There's a depth to it that words can't really explain. But we're being asked to teach a concept like forgiveness in this guided meditation. So when you're doing this type of work, like this on nonviolence, and this is all heart work for us, right? So this all has to do with the health of your heart chakra, the health of what is the heart chakra? It's all about unconditional love. It's all about forgiveness. It's all about, but it's way past the words and it's way past the intellect. So it challenges me a lot when I was writing things in these guided meditations. I used them so much in my everyday when I was working with children, but I really had to reflect on it because this sense of forgiveness can only come, and that energy of forgiveness can only come through forgiving. and having that practice of forgiving. So actually, when I was writing this and when I reflect upon this, before I taught it to the children, before I was teaching it to the children I was working with, it was challenging for me because I had to go back in my own personal life and I had to think about, who do I need to forgive? Where do I need forgiveness in my everyday life? And how can I completely embody it enough to have this be a guided meditation? But it has to be beyond the intellect. Remember, I talked about this before. All of this section of it, mindfulness, all of this has to be past the thinking mind. It has to be past the intellectual mind. It has to be embodied in a way. And so when you're doing these, and it's just like the gratitude one that we just did, that gratitude guided meditation, when you're about to actually guide children through these meditations, you have to do the work in the back of it, right? In the background of it. You have to, before you're doing this guided meditation on nonviolence, and it's all about forgiveness, it's all about this letting go, the work behind that is, how can I forgive? What do I need to forgive? And how can I really get into that space that's right here in the heart, the yogic heart center, this place, and how can I give that to children? How can I really, really be that instrument for children so they can understand what I'm truly guiding them through? So it's quite complex. When you start doing this guided meditation, it's not just words. And see, this is different than what other children's mindfulness teachers are teaching. Yeah, these exercises are great. These guided meditation scripts are great. But if you haven't really reflected upon your own sense of forgiveness or nonviolence, let's just say ahimsa, it's going to be really, really a different experience than just saying the script, just to say it. or just to go from there. I'm gonna let Paula in here. I'm trying to get her in. There she is. And so here we go. We're on the script of nonviolence. One second. I'm trying to get Paula in. I don't know why my computer's not letting her in. Anyway, so we're on this place of nonviolence. You must do the reflection on nonviolence and your own sense of forgiveness before you do the guided meditation. And that's an imperative part of this process. This is so strange. I can't get her in. I'm just going to stop for a moment so I can figure out what's happening with my computer. And let's not pause. So this ahimsa guided meditation. So another way I wanted to tell you too, so the guided meditations that I chose to write about in the book and chose to talk about in these activities, they're all from yogic perspective. So all of these, and that goes for the peace curriculum as well. So nonviolence from the yogic perspective is the ahimsa. So these are what we call those are called the Crystal, you can help me out if you want to, but I'm getting to it. Yamas and niyamas. That's what I was getting, the yamas and niyamas. Sorry about that. So these are going back to the yamas and niyamas, and we'll talk more about the yamas and niyamas in the peace curriculum. But when I was really framing, and I was really, because there's a lot of guided meditations out there, but what I really wanted for children is I wanted them based on the yamas and niyamas. So that's why this came out this way. And when I reflected upon ahimsa and nonviolence, I had to talk. I really felt like forgiveness was so important to talk about that it had to be part of it. So if you go to the script and if you see that forgiveness lives in the heart, think of forgiveness, that whole area of it is such a huge part, because the nonviolence, ahimsa, that sense of being hurt, or that sense of like being judgmental, or that all sense, the ego is going to come in, and you're going to, there's just going to be times, it's part of being here and natural. I've never met, even people who've meditated for years and years and years, things still come up for them. Things like judgment, things like hurt, all these things, it's not like they poof and go away once you're the Dalai Lama, or once you've meditated for 20 years or 30 years or whatever. That's not how it works. Things like that, that's the nature of being here. It comes up. And so you're giving the tools to the children to be able to deal with naturally comes up, and what's naturally part of being here. So all of that, if you see in the middle of that page, think of forgiveness. Forgiveness lives in the heart. Forgiveness is letting go of negative emotions. Forgiveness is letting go of negative emotions. All of that is part of the script. It's part of living in a nonviolent way. So just looking at that one, let's go to the truthfulness again. Truthfulness is part of the yogic mentality, and the yamas and the niyamas. So truthfulness is on page 150. So again, before you do this guided meditation with children, here comes all of this self-reflection on truthfulness. And because what we're doing is, I can't stress this enough, it's past the intellect. You're getting into the energy of truth. You're getting into the energy of nonviolence. You're getting into the energy of gratitude. It just can't be something that you're saying or something intellectual thing. It has to be, you have to feel that truthfulness within you. So again, another chakra is associated with truthfulness, and that's this chakra here. So the third eye chakra is associated with truthfulness. And from an energetic point of view, this is where truth sits. This is where truth is found. So again, before you do the guided meditation, you're reflecting yourself on, where am I not being truthful? Where do I need to be more honest? What does truth really mean to me? And what is the truth really important? And am I living my truth? These are not easy things to face, but they're worthwhile to adventure into. They're worthwhile to actually dive into and to focus on, and to have a real deep conversation, the self-dialogue that you have, and self-reflection. This is the meat of it, right? This is the meat of life. I love it. I love it. Asking these great questions of yourself, you're only making yourself into a better person, and you're only asking for more spiritual growth. And really, adulthood is about that. It's about taking one more step into the unknown and going deeper into your own spiritual growth, and going deeper into the unknown, and going deeper into the state of what we call faith, right? Taking the step, not being sure what we're stepping on, but having faith that there's something to step on, right? So all of this is the meat of growing, and it's the meat of just adulthood. Okay. So the truthfulness, again, before you do, you're reflecting all about truthfulness. The script talks about the truth in your heart center, feel truth. And again, we're not occupied with the words, we're more occupied with the feeling and the energy of it. Any questions about that? No? Okay, great. And I still can't let that look in, which is really good. So that's okay. Okay, so truthfulness, non-violence, non-attachment. Okay, so let's go to non-attachment. And what we're actually going to do contentment. So we're going to talk about non-attachment, but then we're going to go to, and we're going to actually go through the guided meditation of happiness or contentment. So the non-attachment, so again, this is another part of the yamas and niyamas. I'm going to talk more about these yamas and niyamas later on in the peace curriculum, but let's reflect upon non-attachment here for a moment. A lot of the yogic perspective is this lesson and this perspective of non-attachment. A lot of yoga is about non-attachment. A lot of what we do, of what we reflect upon, a lot of our meditation, all this perspective, the yogic perspective, a lot of it comes down to this idea of not being attached. So what are we getting to when we're talking about non-attachment? Are we attached to our own beliefs? Are we attached to our own opinions? Are we attached to our own way of thinking? Are we attached?
All of the above.
Yeah. Are we attached to an outcome? Are we attached to an expectation? Are we attached to people? Are we attached to material things? Are we attached to a lot of all those things? So this is the reflection that you're doing before you're doing this guided meditation. And I think what this generation is really dealing with is the sense of instant gratification, right? Like this generation of kids, they have this information at their fingertips that we never did. We didn't have this sense of doing a search and finding the answers. We did something called research that was like in books, and that we had to look through and all of that stuff. They have this information at their fingertips, and it's this instant gratification and this instant attachment to what they have. it's a whole different way of getting information. It's a whole different way of getting things done. And so this sense of not being attached to that, of that instant gratification, not being attached, they need a lot of help with this. This is a deep lesson for this generation. I really do feel. So this is what, when we're reflecting upon, so as mindfulness teachers, we're reflecting upon how it applies to our own lives. But then the second part of it is we're starting with a discussion. All of these you can start with a discussion before you actually do the guided meditation, but this one's going to be a long one. This one, I remember having this, I haven't done this one recently, but I remember when I did last school year and I was having this conversation with my students. It's especially with 7th and 8th graders, they look at it in a very different way. You know, they look at it like attachment to everything is attachment. They see attachment as really important. Attachment to their friends, attachment to, you know, their future expectations. I had this whole discussion. It was very eye-opening and mind-blowing about, you'll see later where I talk about apprenticeships and children talking about their futures and giving them this sense of hope and this sense of goals and stuff, which is different than this. This is completely different, but they must have both of it. They must have the sense of the future is mine and I can create it, but also I need to be able to detach from it as well. So this is a very hard concept for not only children to get, but for adults to get. So the mantra is, can I detach from the result? Can I act in a way just because that action is fulfilling to myself? Can I detach from what the expectation is of others and what the result may be? So adults, it's a whole different thing because we are materially guided. We are, you know, householders that need to provide. So our actions are really, this is reflection about motivation and our actions, you know. So can we not be attached to any of that, and can we live on a journey that we have, whether that's through meditation, our own self-care practices? Can we live on the journey with that just sense of self, of self-fulfillment, self-care, like letting our soul guide us and how we feel at a certain moment, letting that soul guide us or spirit guide us to our next step, than being preoccupied with material attachment. So this is a really complicated and deep conversation to have with kids, and the kids get it. That's the thing. They get it. The 7th and 8th graders, they get it, but it was hard for them to conceptualize. How can I be attached to, how can I be completely non-attached? And even as adults, I have issues with non-attachment as well, because I cannot fathom being not attached to my son. You know, as a mother, as a family householder, this is a concept that, and this is a thing that we're studying from a yogic perspective, from a peace perspective. It was really hard for my mind really wrapped around this concept of non-attachment from the perspective of being a mom. And it's still really this balancing act. I think for all mothers it is. It's like, when do I attach and when do I not attach? But ultimately, we all have to be in non-attachment, right? Because we all are going to a different level. We're all on our way through the cycle of life. So it's very interesting and it's very complicated. But I think it's a very good one for children. I think it's a really good one just to kind of plant the seed. It's a complicated one. It goes deeper into spiritual teachings, but if you can just plant the seed that there is a concept that you don't have to be attached to any of this. There's a concept that you don't have to be attached. That whole sense of non-attachment, I think it's good to drop that seed into their consciousness. And some of them will be like, you know, they're really, really like just very keen. You know, students will be like, yeah, I really, really get that. I get that who I am now is not who am I going to be in 5 minutes, or, you know, this big picture of it. But some children will just be like, nope, I need my phone. Nope, I need my parents to drive me places. I need my car. You know, some of them are just so maturely minded that sense of non-attachment. And rightfully so. That's the way that they are right now. That's their developmental stage, you know, especially 7th and 8th graders. So this one is a huge one, and it really talks about, it really gets deep into letting go of things, just letting go. But it's a good one to do if there's a lot of conflict around like possessions, you know. Okay, so non-attachment. Okay, so let's do contentment. And then we'll do contentment together, and then we'll go through the homework, and then we'll call it a night. And hopefully, actually, I think I'm gonna just wait a moment here because I really want Paula to get in, and I don't know why it's not letting her get in. So strange. So can we just take a short 5 minutes? 5 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll see you back in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
What does contentment entail? And I like to describe it as a smile in your heart. I also like to describe it as that curiosity for life that makes you have a little spring in your step. For me, it's not enough to just say contentment is happiness. For me, again, all of this is energy and how energy plays out in the body, and the feeling of it and where that feeling is. And it's in every breath that you take. Happiness is in every breath that you take. Happiness is in every spring in your step. And it's really interesting when you start teaching this to children. You think of ways of saying it in a way so they can connect to it and they can really resonate with what you're giving to them energetically. Because it's not enough just to talk about it and to intellectually have it up here somewhere. Let's talk about happiness. What things make you happy? It's not enough just to go there. You have to almost have them experience it through feeling. Where do you feel happiness? What makes you happy? And how do you know you're happy? This is the thing. This is this being able to really connect and being able to learn. This is about self-knowledge, right? When you pose the question to a child, how do you know you're happy? And what times do you know you're happy? And what times do you know that you're unhappy? It may be easier to even start with what is unhappiness? When do you feel unhappy? And how does that feel like? So to have that contrast in order to explain it more clearly. So in this one, we're going to go through, we're going to do this. I'm going to lead it. Again, you can lay down or you could have it, you can be seated while I'm going to lead this. But again, I have to say the language is not necessarily language I would use for adults. So you're kind of putting yourself into that place of a child. And this language is really, really clear. It's very simple. It's very succinct. It's different than a regular guided meditation that an adult would have. So again, I just wanted to preface that. So go ahead and let's go back into that meditative seat, whatever that feels like with you. It's closing the eyes, inhaling and exhaling, and like putting everything else away. So you're putting your paper away, putting everything else away, and just kind of tuning into the breath at this moment. Inhaling and exhaling. Begin breathing slowly and closing your eyes deeply, resting your eyes. If the breath is rapid, then slow down the breath. There's no need to rush. There's no need to rush anything at this moment. Just inhaling and exhaling. Be aware of nothing else but the inhalation and the exhalation. Relax the whole body. Relax the eyes. Relax the whole front body. Relax the whole back body. Relax the head, relax the neck. Feel as if you're about to go to sleep, but your body is awake. Inhale and exhale. Feel the sensation of rest and sleep. Imagine the heart at the center of the chest. Listen to the beating rhythm of the heart. Feel the heart smiling with pure contentment and happiness. Feel the heart smiling with pure contentment and happiness. Contentment is warmth. Contentment is joy. Inhale and exhale. Contentment is a smiling feeling in the heart. So go to your heart and feel your heart smile. We do not need things to be 100% perfect in order to be content. We're aware of the imperfection of things and we feel happy anyway. Inhale and exhale. Feel the heart silently laugh with contentment. Keep your inner eye on the happiness of the heart. Inhale and exhale. Keep your inner eye on the happiness of the heart. Inhale and exhale. Bring your awareness back to the body, the whole body. Inhale and exhale. Feel the body on the ground. Connect to the energy of the ground. Stretch the whole body. Bring the arms above the head. Reach up. Gently relax the hands back down on the tops of the knees. Open the eyes. Okay, so that's the contentment. I'm actually really happy with the wording of that. I think it's a beautiful image to have a heart smile, and I think that children get it. I think they really, really do get it. So, any comments about the experiences of the gratitude or the contentment? Any comments on either one of those?
Probably not a good idea at this late at night to lay down like I just did. It's like, oh, I have to get up.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's true.
Your voice and the words that are just like, oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm. Can you just keep talking to me?
Yeah, don't mind me. I'm gonna go
keep
to bed
reading.
That's funny.
We should save it till the very end, and you can just like read us to sleep.
I support that plan.
Yeah, I should just do a YouTube channel of just those meditations for adults, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But keep the heart smile. I really like the heart smile, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's my heart smile.
Yeah. And now we're smiling, so there you go. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this week's homework is to practice the contentment and the gratitude. So what we did tonight, I've started you, so you can choose, you can do one in the morning, one at night, or you can alternate, but you can do one gratitude one day, one contentment the other day. And what you do is just, if you're doing it for yourself, you can just read it to yourself. And you can go through those images and bringing those images to mind and just kind of practicing that. And I've kind of consolidated it for our class tonight, but really both of those guided meditations and those mindfulness practices can be really, really drawn. I mean, you can make that into a longer script if you want to. You can pause in different places. You can, you can have big moments of silence in the middle of them. And we're going to talk about silence next time. Silence is huge. It's really hard to do silence, to teach silent meditation or silent mindfulness with children. It's one of the most challenging things, but rewarding things, to teach them the value of silence. So there's a lot you can craft around those two. Really think about and reflect upon truthfulness, contentment, gratitude, non-attachment. This is all in preparation. We're going to return back to these time and time again for a peace curriculum. Trust, happiness, joy, acceptance, right action, all of these things. When it comes down to it, and I struggle with this a lot when I was making this curriculum and when I was teaching it to children, I did not want any of this to come off preachy to children. You know what I mean? Like, I did not want to say, don't do this, or, this. Every time I planned a lesson for children in any of these, and in mindfulness in any of these, I always came back to it was that preachy. I didn't want it to come across preachy. So in order for it not to be preachy, you must embody it. That's the only way around it. You must reflect upon yourself. What is truthfulness? What is happiness? What is joy? You have to go back to that because they're going to see right through it if you're going to come across in a preachy way. And so it's a really, really, I struggle with that a lot when I teach this, because I don't want to come across in the way where it's just words. It's just words coming out. I want to come across a way where it's the energy within me that is so happy about what I'm teaching, or what I'm giving to you, and I'm giving you that energy as well. So it's a whole different mind frame than just using it as words. Okay, so you really have to reflect upon it and feel it in the body. And again, write down what makes you happy. That's part of all of this, right? What makes us happy? To be here, to be joyful, to be walking here and doing what we're meant to do, and following our soul's direction in our own path. So I mentioned before that the midterm essay, don't sweat it. It's just going to be really easy, okay? I just want to make sure we're doing lesson 6. It's going to be around lesson 8 that I'm going to give you these questions, okay? Okay, great. Thank you so much for taking this time to discuss these things with me. And
I have a quick question before you go.
Sure.
I subbed a teen yoga class tonight, and do you think that this is too young or would still work, these meditations for them?
They work for them. I think they would work for them. Like, I'm sure I primarily use this with like 8th grade, 7th grade. So yeah, it would definitely work for them. I would put 2 together. I would do rotation of consciousness and then a gratitude. I would do rotation of consciousness, then the contentment. I would put them together in that way. Yeah. And then I would have them talk about it because they can talk about it. The teens can talk.
Mm-hmm.
So
They can.
they can talk a lot. So let them move out that energy, you know. Do their mouth. It's better than having drama. If they can talk about something that's productive, then that's good. That's good.
What I find is interesting with them is I've only subbed a few times, but I always, since I'm not the regular teacher, I always ask them what kind of class they want to experience.
Yeah.
And most of the time, well, 2 out of 3 so far, they've always wanted a relaxing class. Like, you know, they really want to turn off their mind from their busy day and world. And so something like this would have been good to bring in tonight.
Absolutely.
For today.
Isn't that telling what they're saying to you? Isn't that saying that I don't want the physical? I don't want the physical.
Yeah.
I want the mental relaxation. That's huge. That's so telling of their generation and how like they're really, really wanting these tools. That's why it's so exciting for me to teach this because I know that they're ready for it, you know?
But it's the high schoolers that want that. Like I've taught once when there was probably like 10 or 11 students and only one middle schooler. And you could tell she was the one who had a hard time with the relaxing class, you know, not really being able to be still and you know, just fidgeting a lot. But the other students, you know, they were all high schoolers and that's what they wanted. So.
Right. So that's great. That's great. I'm so glad that you're the teen. Is it mostly girls or boys or is it both?
Pretty much, it's open to everyone, but it's all been girls. We launched it last year. I have a different teacher that's teaching it, but I just help her out occasionally. But I don't know if we've had any boys, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Great. So this is definitely useful for them. They can really, it works great for them too. Okay, absolutely great, exciting. Yay.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I will see you next week. Same time.
And
go ahead.
Don't forget to send the video from last week.
Yes, I'm going to figure out how to, I have them. I'm going to figure out how to I'm either going to put it up on YouTube and then have you guys just link on it, or I'm going to send it to you somehow. But it's such a big file. That's what the problem is. These are hour and a half, 2-hour files. So Dropbox might be an option as well. So we'll figure it out. I'll get it to you.
Or Google Drive.
Or Google Drive. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
You too.
You too. Bye.
Bye.